No eggs to sell today, at least not yet. We haven't checked the chickens yet. I think Brenda said she checked them earlier and they still hadn't produced yet this morning, so she's going to keep them locked in the pen. But at any rate, we did have a full dozen ready for sale, but unfortunately when I opened the refrigerator this morning, they fell out and we lost about 4 of them, cracked. So anyway, well, on here, since we got the permit, and back, I think it was somewhere around the beginning of the year when we were talking about going through the permitting process, how long it would take. We had to get the site plan for our septic design and all that, and we had to wait for things to dry out a little bit. So it was an estimate on my part as far as where we might be at this time of the year, and I was kind of hoping we'd be a little bit further along. I was kind of hoping we'd have the forms in by now, so that by the time we got the permit, all we had to do was call the concrete company and say, hey, when can you schedule us, bring it over. And unfortunately, we're not quite there, maybe 3-4 weeks behind. Not a big deal, but you know, it's just the way things go. There's sometimes things come up that you don't plan for, can't plan for, and you got to deal with them as they come up. So it is what it is. I feel pretty good about being not too far off of my guesstimate in terms of time. But we are at the beginning of September, first week of September here. So we know last year we got snow. I think it was on Christmas Day was our first snow. Not to say the ground wasn't frozen. I thought it wasn't frozen by then either. So, you know, not that we want to push our limit or our luck as far as trying to get this done before winter, but it would be nice to get these slabs in, because at least if that part's done, then at least we can work on getting the containers. There's a lot of work I got to do to get those ready to move again and put them on the slabs and whatnot. So, but we can work on that maybe through the winter. Who knows? At least we'll be ready. Worst case scenario, next spring, we'll be able to, you know, hit the ground running and really get going. But for today, I've got a little project I've got to take care of before I can start making the forms. And that's going to involve me digging with the Mahindra 2638 somewhere over here. And I got to dig a couple trenches, because the first container I'm putting in, the first form I should say that I want to build is for this container. And this container, as I mentioned previously, is going to be for our solar panels. We're going to have solar panels on the outside here, and we're going to have our solar set up inside. We're going to have a room inside that we can control the monitor and control the temperature and humidity and whatnot. So at least half of the container. So one of the things it's also going to be able to do is we want to be able to eliminate the pump house here, because that won't make it through the winter unless it was insulated and heated, which we could do if we have to. But I'd rather not. I'd rather see if we could get the container moved over here and be able to get the water line run from there over to this area over here where the container will be, and then we'll be able to run the water line up inside the container, and that way it'll be protected from the cold and it'll be out of the way over here. We can eliminate this pump house, take our power station, move it in the container, and, you know, use that pump station or that cabin or whatever for something else. And once the container's here, I'll be able to hook up the water pump and the generator until I can get the power system, because that's going to take me a little while to get that running. But at least I'll have everything hopefully inside, out of the weather, and in a atmosphere controlled, or controlled atmosphere, I should say, where I don't have to worry about temperatures and whatnot. And the only thing I wanted to do before I go put the forms down, I want to dig a trench over here and bury a 3-inch a 3-inch PVC pipe, so that I can run my water line up inside once the container's on. So I know from both of those pins that I've set in the ground that the center of my 3-inch pipe here will be somewhere right in the middle of that rock. And I just did this so that I know approximately where to dig the trench. The other thing I'm thinking is, for this winter, if I would be able to bury these 2 lines and get the trench far enough so that I can put our RV, because we do plan on moving the RV back down for the winter. We don't want to be up on the hill, because we'd rather be close to our power and our water. and I don't want to have to deal with 200 feet of water line exposed all winter. It's just not going to work out. We got to really try to improve on the situation we had over last winter. So one of my thoughts was, since I have to go in this direction anyway with the water and the power over to the barn area, what I could do is park the RV somewhere in the middle, somewhere on the way there, so that maybe I would be able to get power and water up underneath the RV, and that would really be nice to not have to deal with anything above the ground, freezing and whatnot, and walking over it and worrying about it and whatnot. So sounds like quite a bit to do, and it is. We got beautiful weather. We just had some rain finally, which was really nice. The ground is a little damp. The dust kind of holds down the dust and what. All right, so I've got that tied off to the water line, where I'll eventually dig the trench over to where it's tied off at the tractor. I'll just mark that off. Of course, the issue I'm hoping not to run into here is a lot of big rocks. I'm only trying to go down maybe 3 or 4 feet. The digging's going really well right now. Like I said, I've only got to make it just before the culvert, which is right here. I don't know if you can see that, but basically I've only got to go about 8 feet. I'm not going to go too far, and that'll be enough. As far as depth goes, like I said, I think I'm shooting for around 3 to 4 feet. I'm going to keep going at least 3. I'll shoot for 4, and if I start running into problems, we'll just work it out from there, figure it out. And I do want to have a little bit of a tilt to this thing, not much, but so everything's going good. Keep digging. My boss, the kitty, out hunting whatever there is to hunt. Okay, so I've got my laser set up over here by the tractor. I'm hoping you can see that over there anyway. As I mentioned earlier, I've got all my markings here on the well, and I've taken my measurements. So right here, I've got hopefully you can see that top of the pipe, this line right up here. So that will be what I'm shooting to get the all right, I've got my measurements here that I made with my pins. I've got some tapes, measuring tapes out here. I'm going to find a rough location. I'm still got to set my height. I've got my height based on what I measured on the well. So I just got to find an approximate location. Then I'm going to come up with a plan for putting the PVC in there so I can put some good sand in there around it. And that'll tell me exactly how high and exactly where it needs to go. So, all right, now I got to get this in place. All right, so I've got my pipe in there. I ended up going back to the old style 2-part glue, the blue glue that I bought, which I've already put back in the trailer. Didn't hold on that one piece of pipe, so I had to take it out and do it again. I got it kind of pretty much lined up. I got to move it over a little bit, level it out a little more. Definitely got the right height on here, no problem. And I've got some good sand down at the base here. So I've got a big pile of sand here I've already cleaned up and screened, I should say. So I'm going to be dumping that in the bottom. But I need to pull that end up over a little bit and just make sure this is pretty straight. And I think that'll do it. I'll take some one more last measurement, make sure I'm right where I want to be. and in reference to my pins, and then we can go ahead and start burying it. Pretty good. I like that. All right. So we got 131. All right, it's taking me most of the day here, but I think I've got it. I've got my, this is going to be my 3-inch PVC that I'm going to eventually run my PEX, 1-inch PEX up through. And obviously I want to get my hole in the slab before I pour it. So I'm going to put the pipe in the ground, and I've got another one to put going on the outside, on the other end, and then we'll make the form, and that way when we pour the concrete, we'll be able to come back and push our line up through here, or push it down through, whatever. And that will line up perfectly with, it's down about 3 feet there, and it'll line up perfectly with the hose line, that's the well line that's coming right up underneath here. We'll be able to, once we're ready, we'll be able to finish digging up. We have to go underneath a culvert right here, so we'll just be able to finish digging this trench up and then run that hose over to here, and that'll be our inlet water line.